In a civil trial, the plaintiff brings a suit or complaint against the defendant and must show that there's a preponderance of the evidence to back up that charge. But in a criminal trial, the prosecution brings a charge against the defendant on behalf of the government, putting that defendant's liberty at stake. So the prosecutor has to prove that charge beyond a reasonable doubt.
There are laws in this country that we have all voted on, either directly or through our representatives. And the prosecutor represents the people or the United States government and is charged with enforcing those laws. That is the prosecutor's duty, is to charge people and bring worthy cases to trial when people have violated these laws that we've all agreed should be in place.
Here are some things prosecutors would like jurors to know.
Prosecutor really has two jobs. One job a juror will see in the courtroom, and that is to make the argument that the person who is accused of a crime is guilty and should be appropriately punished. Prosecutor has another important job which occurs outside the courtroom, and that is to make sure that everyone plays by the rules. Because it's not a prosecutor's job just to secure guilt. The prosecutor has to stand up for justice.
The role of the prosecutor in our criminal justice system begins with the investigation often, and so they work with law enforcement to try and investigate the facts and determine whether or not someone should be charged with a crime.
So during the trial, just like the judge and the defense, the prosecution wants a juror to be particularly aware of this.
When the prosecutor presents evidence, he or she wants the jurors to pay attention, to listen.
As you present evidence, you want to make sure that the jurors are listening very carefully, that they keep an open mind, that they're judging witnesses' credibility, and that ultimately they'll determine inferences that can be drawn from the evidence.
Once jurors are ready to deliberate, prosecutors would hope that jurors have committed their full attention to the evidence presented during the trial.
So the first thing a juror has to do is listen very, very closely to the judge before they retire. But either a prosecutor or a defense counsel, I'm sure, would want the jurors to carefully go over the evidence, to discuss the issue among themselves. If they have questions, to submit questions back to the judge during the course of their deliberations, and then to work hard to come up with the right answer. It's important that the jurors feel comfortable with their decision.
And just like the judge and the defense attorney, the prosecutor would also like to remind jurors that every defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Our Constitution is based on the Bill of Rights, and it's based on a presumption that government should not deprive someone of their liberty unless they can truly prove what occurred. So one of the elements of that is to presume that that person who sits there in the courtroom on the first day of trial is just as innocent as any juror or the judge or the prosecutor or defense counsel. So you presume the innocence, and then it's up to the state, the government, working through the prosecutor to prove that that is not true.
The role of the prosecutor is very important in society, obviously. And your goal is to seek justice, not necessarily convictions, because you leave it up to the jury under our system to determine whether someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.